On the news, ISWAP executes policeman, soldier in new video. FG moves to promote FOI Act, orders MDAs to publish details of financial activities. 6 Iraqi soldiers injured in fresh missile attack. A warm welcome to News Now. I am Fidelia Aguncha. The Islamic State of West African Province, ISWAP, has reportedly executed 2 Nigerian soldiers and a policeman. The security agents were killed in a video dated December 8, 2019. Before their execution, the men introduced themselves as a mobile police sergeant, as well as a sergeant and a private soldier of the Nigerian Army. They also narrated that they were abducted from a village located few kilometers to Maiduguri. It's not clear how many people were abducted, but the video only showed 3 tortured security personnel with their hands tied behind them. In the video, the terrorist sect also threatened to carry out massive attacks on military formations in the northeast. It is not the first time the terrorists will be executing their victims. Through its Boko Haram affiliates, the terrorists have executed no fewer than 3 aid workers who were abducted in the region. Meanwhile, the police and army authorities are yet to react to the developments. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Army has rescued 31 persons comprising 14 women and 17 children from Boko Haram insurgents at Mantari, Malam Masari and Gabchari villages in Bama local government area of Borno State. In a statement by its operations media coordinator, Colonel Aminu Iliasu, the army said 7 insurgents were killed, while 3 voluntarily surrendered to troops during the fierce operation carried out on December 4th. During the same operation, troops reportedly destroyed a suspected Boko Haram enclave in Borno State and recovered 2 AK-47 rifles, 2 loaded magazines, 3 unexploded mortar bombs, among others. Colonel Iliasu also announced that the Nigerian Army over the weekend received a Boko Haram member who willingly surrendered his arms and denounced the activities of the sect. The federal government has directed all ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, to publish the summary of their financial inflows and outflows every day. President Muhammadu Buhari gave the directive on Monday at the launch of the Financial Transparency Policy and Implementation Guidelines in Abuja. The government agencies were also directed to publish reports of all payments above 10 million naira, according to the president, who was represented by the Minister of State for Niger Delta Affairs, Tayo Alasho-Adura. The directives are part of efforts to encourage transparency and accountability in public finance. He noted that the directive is part of the federal government's commitment to fully implement the Freedom of Information Act of 2014. The directive also charged the Accountant General of the Federation to publish quarterly financial statements for the government as a whole and for individuals within a month after the end of each quarter. President Muhammadu Buhari must reaffirm his commitment to the rule of law by releasing Omoyele Sowore and other political prisoners in its custody. This was a submission of civil rights groups protesting against the rearrest of Sowore and his co-defendant Olawale Bakari by operatives of the Department of State Services (DSS). At a press conference in Lagos and Abuja, the groups threatened to shut down activities across the country if their request for Showore's release is not met by the government soon. Abisola Adebayo has more in this next report.
The circumstances surrounding the rearrest of human rights activist Omoyele Sowore by operatives of the Department of State Service (DSS) is still generating mixed reactions. Various requests for Showore's release since his arrest on Friday has been ignored by the federal government. To this effect, civil rights activists in Lagos and Abuja have issued an ultimatum to the presidency asking it to grant their demand or risk massive protests across the country.
We the civil society organizations here present hereby call on the retired General Muhammadu Buhari-led dictatorship to release all unjustly detained political prisoners, and failing which, on the part of this regime that we have appropriately labeled as a civilian dictatorship, we shall unleash and occupy Nigeria now mass movement on the streets of this country, starting and commencing on the 17th day of December 2019. We all equivocally call for the immediate release of Omoyele Sowore, who was illegally rearrested after being released on bail pursuant to the order of Honorable Justice Ijoma Ojukwu of the Federal High Court during the pendency of his trial proceedings.
We demand the following. Number one, President Muhammadu Buhari to show accountability as President and Commander-in-Chief and address the nation on his commitment to the rule of law and human rights. Number two, the release of all illegally detained persons by the Department of Secret Service, as revealed by Amnesty, Premium Times, and Punch newspapers in recent months. Number three, that the government obey all pending court orders. Number four, an investigation of the officers who violated protocol and the circumstances leading to Omoyele Sowore's second arrest. And lastly, the unconditional release of Omoyele Sowore per his bail terms. If these 5 demands are not honored within 14 days, we call on patriots across Nigeria to join us as we occupy the National Human Rights Commission.
Even the international community is not left out. Serving U.S. lawmaker Bob Menendez has condemned the development, which he described as worrisome. He says the United States will intervene in the matter.
The government has to intercede here and get control of its security forces. It has to ultimately make sure that the dictates of the courts are observed. And if not, then there is lawlessness. So this is on, from my perspective, it's on the government of Nigeria and its president to make sure that, in fact, the law is observed. He was released by court orders. He should be released. He should be out of harm's way. And we are watching. We will continue to press. And the consequences of anything happening to Mr. Sowore will be far beyond any harm that comes to him. There will be consequences in our relationship with Nigeria.
Sowore's arrest has also been condemned by Secretary to the African Action Congress Lagos chapter, Towolawi Jamiu. Jamiu charged the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration to be more committed to the rule of law and make the country conducive for all its citizens.
We are saying, what was the demand? What was Omoyele Sowore's offense? It was calling for a democratic end to insecurity in this country. It is also calling that despite the fact that the 30,000 minimum wage is not even enough for a secondary school child to take care of himself within a month, but we are saying that since you have also said you are going to pay that 30,000 naira, we are also demanding that they should implement it. What are we also saying? That they should fund education. I can tell you categorically that all political elites, their children are not attending any institution in Nigeria. Our demand is also that our education should be funded.
Amid this backlash, the presidency has denied ordering the rearrest of Sowore. It, however, defended the action of the Secret Service, saying the agency is empowered by the Constitution to make arrests without the consent of the president. Abisola Adebayo, TV360, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the presidency has defended the actions of the Department of State Services, saying it does not need the permission of President Muhammadu Buhari to arrest persons of interest like Omoyele Sowore. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Garba Shehu, the presidency noted that Sowore called for a revolution to overthrow the democratically elected government of Nigeria and to this effect, he has become a person of interest to the DSS. The president's spokesperson argued that no government will allow anyone to openly call for destabilization in the country and do nothing. The presidency also noted that Nigeria's democracy was a long time in the making and was achieved after decades of military-led overthrows of government, the kind of situation which he claims Sowore was advocating for. Well, the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism has postponed its plans to present the integrity specialty of the Anti-Corruption Defender Award to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. According to a statement signed by Moturayo Alaka, Chief Executive Officer of the center, the decision aligns with protests against the repression of freedom of speech in recent times, especially the incident between the Department of State Security, DSS, and Omoyele Sowore. The WSCIJ holds the award presentation event on December 9th, which is the World Anti-Corruption Day and eve of the World Human Rights Day, to highlight the importance of investigative reporting as a tool for accountability, good governance, and social justice in a democracy. The Nigerian government has guaranteed its commitment to collaborating with other arms of government to drive economic growth and development. Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed gave this assurance at a two-day retreat on the economic and development planning in Nigeria, organized by Senate Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs in Abuja. The joint retreat brings together key players in the planning sector to devise ideas on a national development plan for sustainable growth and national development. At the joint retreat, panelists harped on the importance of national planning as a potent tool to drive economic growth and development.
The policy decision-making process that determines policy and expenditure priorities must also permit expanded cooperative federalism. That word again, the Indian High Commissioner used it as the way to go, since that's what they've just done in their own country. And popular participation, including involvement of the legislature, the judiciary, the academia, private sector, media, and civil society, so that social choices reflect the needs and preferences of Nigerians as well as their confidence. At the Nigerian Governors Forum, we're doing more to strengthen government legitimacy, plans, and actions. Our policy arm, the NGF Secretariat, has been positioned to strengthen the quality of data and evidence we use through peer reviews. This will ensure that the decisions we make maximize the use of resources available in our states.
Presently, we have several committees spanning solid minerals, like Governor Fayemi is presently chairman of a committee on that, to see how the states themselves can key in into exploring and exploitation of solid mineral resources in their various states. I think if advantage is taken of that, by the time their report is out, we have states being able to assess and to be able to exploit the solid minerals in their state.
What do we do that brings forward a national planning framework and outcomes that actually deliver on development for the Nigerian nation? And by the way, I am not going to say the Nigerian economy, because it's got to be the Nigerian people and the Nigerian nation. That's a larger concept than the Nigerian economy.
And in other news, a former governorship candidate, Babatunde Badamasi, has criticized the Lagos State property tax known as the Land Use Charge. Badamasi was speaking at the 2019 prestigious Real Estate Developers Award, REDA, organized by the publishers of the Real World magazine giant, Edge Global Business Limited. He says a retraction of land ownership from its landlords to the government may affect economic growth in Nigeria.
It was a gathering of experts in the real estate sector at the second edition of Real Estate Developers Award, REDA, organized by the publishers of the Real World magazine. The event, which is focused on the sustainability of the real estate industry, in the competitive market highlights the possible challenges faced by the property owners as a result of government policies. Guest speaker at the event, Babatunde Gbadamosi, condemns this tax, adding that it can hinder economic development in the state.
The Land Use Act has the unsalutary effect of taking away the ownership of land from the people of Nigeria and handing it to the governors of the states in Nigeria. And that, in my opinion, is something that, somehow detracts from the possibility of economic growth in Nigeria. And this is borne out by the level of development that you see in the country, as well as what you see elsewhere in the world. The United States, the United Kingdom, and all these other developed economies that we have gone to borrow things like our constitution, our legal system, and so on from, operate freehold system of land ownership. Whereas in Nigeria, there is no freehold. There is absolutely no freehold, and that's something that we need to look into as quickly as possible in order to speed up the economic development of Nigeria. And of course, because of this Land Use Act, there is no real security of title, because the governors do retain the right to revoke the certificates of occupancy that they issue.
In its defense, the senior special assistant to the governor on housing, Ayodeji Amodu, says repealing the land use charge is unnecessary.
Nigeria is a federation. There's no how Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu can repeal on his own the Land Use Act, because that law was promulgated in 1978 to serve the whole nation. So the land belongs to the government. If you say, like you asked me now, how the governor, if he will repeal, I will tell you for free that it is not something that is possible for him to do all by himself. I don't think it's something that is necessary for now. What we'll be talking about is how the titles, will be rolling out as possible. And I discussed it there that the Lagos State government, as make it as a matter of policy to designate and delegate powers to about 5 commissioners of Lagos State to ensure that they sign off C of O's.
The Lagos State Land Use Charge is a property tax backed by the Land Use Charge Law of 2018. It is a consolidation of ground rent, tenement rate, and neighborhood improvement levy. The law backing the LUC was first enacted in 2001, but was repealed and reenacted to address some identified challenges after its introduction in 2018. Adeshawa Odushoga, TV360 Lagos, Nigeria.
News Now will continue in just a moment. Don't go away.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello, Alahaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello, Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I will just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we're in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you are raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. Let's now cross over to Oyin Adekunle for news in business. Hello, Oyin.
Hi, Fidelia.
So I understand the Federal Inland Revenue Service now has a new chairman.
Well, you're very correct. There's been a change of guard at the FIRS as the President Muhammadu Buhari has appointed Mohammed Nami to replace Babatunde Fowler as the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. That's the FIRS. Fowler's 4-year tenure as chairman of the Revenue Agency ended on Monday, and that's today. He's expected to hand over to the most senior director on the board until the Senate confirms Nami as the FIRS chairman. According to a statement by Garba Shehu, the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Nami is a tax, accounting, and management professional with 3 decades of practical working experience in auditing, tax management, and advisory and management services. He is a fellow of Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Institute of Debt Recovery Practitioners of Nigeria, and associate member of the Nigerian Institute of Management and Association of National Accountants of Nigeria. Since the Nigerian Senate passed the 2020 budget last week, after it was submitted by President Muhammadu Buhari in October, it has been generating some concerns from experts in the financial sector. As reviewed in the budget, a total sum of 2.7 trillion naira is expected to service debt, representing almost a quarter of the entire budget. Financial experts have, however, considered this worrisome as the debt service outgrows the projection for capital expenditure, and this, he said, is not good for the economy. The expert also urged the government to intensify its partnership with the private sector to assist in infrastructural development.
We may not expect much of capital expenditure next year if our revenue does not improve dramatically. And there's nothing in the works to show that our revenue is going to increase so much, because if you look at even the increase in VAT, the money will accrue mainly to the states and local governments. If you also look at the amendment of the Deep Offshore Inland Basins Bill, not so much will come out of it. If it comes, it will still go to the Federation account for sharing between the three tiers of government. Even the monies expected under the Finance Bill is not going to be dramatic. So all in all, we may not see more than, if the weather is so good, we may not see more than the addition of 1 trillion naira into the coffers of the federal government. We have an infrastructure development master plan, which was supposed to run from 2014 to about 2043. We've not activated the mechanisms in that master plan, which was supposed to raise funding through a combination of new policies, new policy measures, which the government will now use amendment of laws to put the private sector in the engine of infrastructure development. So budgetary funding or money you've got from debts was supposed to leverage, was supposed to be the money that will now make the private sector to come out, leverage their own money. So for every dollar that the federal government brought forward, the private sector was supposed to bring about 10, 11. So at the end of the day, you have more of public-private partnerships and citizens' commitment to building a new Nigeria. And we've not done that because there's a lot of lack of transparency and accountability in the way we are managing our fiscal governance. And of course, the necessary laws and policies have not been amended.
Let's take a pause here, and when we return, it will be time to review activities on the stock market. Please stay tuned. Opening activities sprung no new surprise for traders and investors in the Nigerian equities market today. The long-running bearish sentiment remained dominant, with key market indicators dropping by 0.65%. Market capitalization, which was 12.9 trillion at the beginning of trade, depreciated by about 84 billion naira today to close at 12.877 trillion naira. And also the ratio of gainers to losers revealed a very large margin, with just 5 gainers against 28 losers. The NSE sustained its bearish run following the decline recorded by most blue chip firms, led by Guarantee Trust Bank and of course followed by Cadbury PLC. Cadbury in last session sold for 9 naira 90 kobo, but today we saw 85 kobo decline in its share price to close at 9 naira and 5 kobo. And still on the losers chart, the share price of Berger Paints also saw its first price drop in the last 7 days from 7 naira 50 kobo to 6 naira 75 kobo today. And the wave of losses also hit top market driver, that's Dangote Cement, and which also performed poorly, declining by 70 kobo today. Let's now do a flip over to the gainers chart, and we see that the chart was majorly dominated by small cap stocks. Eternal led the pack with 20 kobo price gain in its of course, in its share price, while Mansard followed with 15 kobo price gain, and that's from 1 naira 80 kobo, 1 naira 65 kobo, I beg your pardon, to 1 naira and 80 kobo today. Cornerstone Insurance PLC and the NPF Microfinance Bank also completed the list of 4 gainers with a combined 9 kobo increase in their share prices. And let's take a look at the summary of all activities in the market today, and we see that the total quantity of shares traded today was over 192 million, and although this is lower than what was recorded in previous session, the sum of this trade remained almost the same with what was recorded in the last session, which was just about 3.5 billion naira. And gloomy day for investors at the NSE, no doubt. But let's now see how trading played out in other markets, and by that I mean foreign markets now. Let's see. We see FTSE US markets actually opened lower at 0.080%. Same downward trend for the Dow Jones. But you see, the Asian market catalyst continues to do its thing for the investors, in favor of the investors. And we see Nikkei edged up today by 0.33% increase, of course. And that's it from here. Fidelia, it's back to you.
Well, thank you, Oyin, for that beautiful review of the stock market. Let's now move to the foreign scene. 6 Iraqi troops have been injured after several rockets slammed into a military complex that also houses U.S. forces near Baghdad International Airport. The Iraqi military said in a statement that the attack was planned to be a larger one, as security forces found launchers that had not been fired properly. Security sources confirmed that the victims belonged to Iraq's counter-terrorism service, an elite unit that was created and trained by U.S. forces. 2 of the wounded persons are also reported to be in critical condition. The attack comes amid a wave of anti-government protests in Iraq. Over the past 6 weeks, at least 9 attacks have hit U.S. targets, and there have been no claims of responsibility, and no U.S. troops have been harmed. Excuse me. And to sport, the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, has handed Russia a 4-year ban from major international sporting competitions over doping non-compliance. WADA made a unanimous decision in a meeting held in Lucerne, Switzerland on Monday. This means the country will miss the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and 2022 World Cup in Qatar. However, athletes who can prove they are untainted by the doping scandal will be able to compete under a neutral flag. The ban was as a result of Russia's non-compliance and manipulation of laboratory data. Russia's anti-doping agency, RUSADA actually, now has 21 days to accept the decision or send the matter to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS. Well, that's it on News Now. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.